Yay. All right, brilliant. Good morning, everybody. And I hope you had a gorgeous weekend. And I hope that you have survived daylight savings time and making that transition. I only got caught up once, so I feel really good about that. But today you've got another class in session, and we're going to continue on practicing the skills of chart interpretation and bringing everything together. So today I've got the beautiful Boaz Fyler in with us, and you guys are you're getting to have a whole session together. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And hello everybody, wherever you are. It's nighttime here, as you could see, but I hope the next 45 to an hour and a half is going to be fascinating for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay, you guys enjoy your class. Myself and Nicole and Alexis will see you in the chat, and we'll see you after. Bye, guys.
Great. So hello everybody, I'm Nia, and I'm from Israel. I'm the OPA satellite for Israel. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I studied under Maurice Fernandez. I also studied ancient astrology and classical astrology, but I call myself an evolutionary astrologer. And since I know that through this academy, you would have the opportunity to see several astrologers give you chart interpretation and transits techniques, I really try to be more specific when it comes to the evolutionary viewpoint of interpreting a chart and giving you the importance of the lunar nodes as the most crucial axis of understanding the developmental road of the soul this time around. And then only would we talk about transits and how I see them and how I see we should work with them. So I hope it's going to be interesting for you all. And Stormy's here to take questions. If you have them, I'd be glad to answer them. Of course, I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. Great. So let's do this full screen. Wonderful. So things we will explore today. First of all, the evolutionary viewpoint. What is evolutionary astrology? Secondly, the lunar nodes and their importance. And third, planetary transits. So in evolutionary astrology, we see life as the evolutionary journey of the soul. And we believe we reincarnate over many lifetimes in order to develop. We believe we come in familial groups of souls, soul clans, if you will, and we meet again, and we play important parts in front of one another as we progress along lifetimes. We choose the themes, the surroundings, the parents we are born to in order to better answer the learning process that our soul needs to undertake. We will learn our lessons anyway, but we can choose between the carrot and the stick. We can gain karma or dharma, the opposite of karma. We reenact and recreate past life themes in order to better exact our reactions to them, in order to better understand the developmental themes that they hold. We do that especially in our early life, and that occurs as a starting point. It gives an azimuth, a direction for this life. Natal chart in evolutionary astrology is a CV of the soul's journey and toolbox thus far, its memories, its experiences, post-traumas, talents, and indeed the karma and lessons that it came to complete. What are the lunar nodes? Well, first of all, why start with the lunar nodes? I start with the lunar nodes because In evolutionary astrology, they hold a greater importance than in other fields of astrology. As I said before, we look at them as a developmental axis of the soul. And for us as evolutionary astrologers, they provide a great entry point to the chart. We begin by analyzing the lunar nodes and their placement. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking about energetic portals in space, talking about the meeting course of the luminaries in regard to Earth on the ecliptic. And whenever that happens, there is a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse. We believe the journey of the soul is depicted through the nodes, and that the nodes talk about the evolutionary lessons of the soul this time around, what we came to learn, what we came to accomplish. And placement in both house and sign is of vital importance. Now, if we have a planet, and even more a luminary, near or an angle to the nodes, these planets are part of the story. They're stations on the way, if you will. We have to remember that since we are talking about the lunar nodes, they always hold the lunar quality, and so are attached at their base to the lunar symbolism in astrology and everything that that holds. We believe it talks about the soul's identity in a sense. And we have to understand that the whole axis is important, and that we need to rise above its duality, the duality it presents, and transcend it. Find a sense of equilibrium between those two poles. They're two sides of the same coin, and we need to understand that the coin is neither one side nor the other. It's what's happening between those two sides. Now, the South Node, in a way, is our past experience. We already know it, for better or worse. It holds all the soul's experience thus far, the bad experience, the good experience, the talents. We know it. And we begin, we feel the South at our early years, at our childhood and adolescence. And we move towards the North Node more and more as we progress towards through life. We can do that directly, astrologically, or we can do that through a planet in aspect, as I said before, as a station between the South Node and the North Node. If a planet is on the nodes, it strengthens the planet. It brings high consciousness in that spot. It's as if I've plugged this planet into the electricity and it's bright in that person's life in neon lights. It puts an emphasis there. And it's already a known process for the soul. It's an ongoing work in progress. We say that if a planet squares the nodes, it could be a bypass point. It could provide a bridge, an equilibrium point. Now, once we gain the new experience of the North, once we understand what it is we need to learn, we can live more in peace and tranquility with the known South, and we can better utilize it and balance it out and make it really healthy for us in our life. Because we all know that what we came with to this life sometimes isn't something we present and are happy to flaunt around, but things that we work on for years, not to be like our parents, not to be like, it's not always positive. And in order to actually work with it better, we need the North. But going too much to the North Node is as detrimental as is staying in the South Node. It is about balancing the two. It is about reaching equilibrium with the whole axis. And from personal experience, I can tell you that in my life, whenever I go towards my North Node the most, I suffer. No extremes. So let's talk about analysis. And here we have a very known person, John Winston Ono Lennon. This is an image of him, if he was alive, coming to his Uranus return, age of 84, soon enough. I love this chart, but we're going to talk about how in evolutionary astrology, I teach how to enter and interpret this chart. Now, as I said before, a great entry point is the nodes. In this case, the south nodes, the dragon's tail. I'll try and draw it out for you. Is in the 12th house in the 11th degree of Aries. And the north node, the dragon's head, is conjunct the sun in the 6th house in Libra. So we begin by talking about the south node. As an evolutionary astrologer, I want to go as far back as I can with this story to understand where this soul came from in order to understand where it's going. We know that John Lennon came from a working class family working in the Liverpool docks. His father was a seaman who was lost at sea for some time, very appropriate for a 12th house, beginning with Pisces, kind of symbology. But this one is in Aries. The South Node itself is in Aries. And that gives it a very independent sense of capability, of saving my own life, of changing my own luck, of being able to actually change destiny, do it on my own. A sense of empowerment and as well, anger, rage, impulsivity, sexuality, temper, and great creativity, entrepreneurship within this 12th house realm. So we see a soul that comes from a place, we talk about the 12th house, of feeling overwhelmed by its surroundings, feeling that there are greater cycles working on it, that one has no control over, that one cannot foresee, and that definitely one did not do anything to deserve occurring in one's life. The 12th house doesn't have exactly the most positive of imageries, but within that, what galvanizes this person is a sense of personal will to actually exit all of this into a new realm, to go on a new road, to start a new thing, and to actually utilize its own power to escape. And that's a very combative attitude coming with Aries on the South Node. I need to have and get what I want, and I'm impatient about it. But his North Node is in the 6th house in Libra. And Libra is about the opposite. It's about finding cooperation. It's about understanding that I cannot do it alone, that people have to join in order for this to truly become. The 6th house is about taking control, is about service, is about holistic viewpoint, is about logistics and how to better accomplish one's dreams. And of course, about health, not neglecting issues no longer. It has a lot of social atmosphere. And in this case, his 6th house is packed. And that gives, alongside with his Venus in Virgo, a very Virgo sense to this chart because of this packed 6th house with the main luminary in it, the sun. And of course, the North Node. So getting there is the soul's goal, understanding that things come through cooperation, and through mediation. That in order to truly succeed, I need others, and I need to find a way to make it harmonious and beautiful, and of course, just. I need to put some of that anger behind, and I don't know how many of you know, excuse me, excuse me, John Lennon as a kid was very troubled. When he went through his childhood, is very traumatizing. And he was so angry that he was thrown out of every school he was in because of kicking other students, and fighting with other students. So finding that peace with Libra is of vital importance. Finding that holistic health with the sixth house is of vital importance. Taking control over one's life, nevertheless, not combatively, is of vital importance. Now, when we see the luminary, the sun, the main luminary, on the North Node, of course, that ties it in to this person's destiny. The North Node talks about this person's destiny, and the sun talks about self-realization, creativity, leadership, putting in the love in order to live a mark through the next generations and, in a way, beat death. So when we see that sun on the North Node, we know that part of the destiny of the person is to truly shine, is to become, is to manifest its light, because that light is important not only to the person and that person's dear ones, but to people that person would never even meet if they wouldn't shine, that would never even hear about them if they wouldn't shine. So we say that in that light, in that message, there's an importance for the greater whole, in a sense. Whenever a person comes into a meeting with the sun on the ascendant or with the sun on the North Node, that's what I tell them, that they need to let themselves shine. Because their shining is important. Of course, we don't have to become egomaniacs, okay? But that their shining is important for the greater good. That something that they carry is important not only for the closest circles that they know and recognize. So that's the first thing that we do when we enter a chart. The first thing. Later, we can examine what other points, trine or square the nodes if we want. Or we can go to the moon. That's what we usually do. We talked about the sun conjunct the North Node. I want to talk about the sun a little more on itself, and then we'll go to the moon, which is the second luminary and the second point after the sun that we approach, and then we talk about the ascendant as a very big influencer of one's character and themes in this life. So when we see the sun in Libra, and I want you to understand that this is a very strong sun, a very luminous sun in a sense. And I'm not talking because of the lunar process, I'm talking about the fact that it is tied into one power port, because it is attached to the North Node, and then it is attached also to the descendant. It is sandwiched between the descendant and the North Node, and these are two power applets, making this sun even more important. And it is in Libra, and not only is it in Libra, it's on the cusp of the seventh, which is the house of Libra. So it's like a double Libra sun in a sense. This is a person that greatly grows through relationships in their lives. This puts an even harder emphasis on the fact that this could not be a solitary existence anymore. Coming from Aries, There was great independence, no need for cooperation, no need for partners. And here, of course, through the partnership with Paul McCartney and two other friends, this person did history. And not only did these relationships play a crucial part in this person's development, in this person's shining, but also the spouses that this person had. The first wife, from which I think John Lennon learned how to be a better person, not to do the same mistake again, with Yoko Ono. And Yoko is the sculptor that molded into existence the John Lennon that we know, remember, and love. He wasn't an easy character before, nor was he an amazing father before. So a very strong sun with a very strong Libra impact within the sixth house, talking again about social issues, about service, about doing things right. Again, what did John Lennon utilize his art for? Social justice, fighting for peace. And then we go to the other side of the North Node and we see that Mars in Libra, that fighter for justice, fighter for peace, fighter for equilibrium. Instead of being in Aries, it is in Libra. It is a pacifist. It fights for pacifism. And we can see this double signature. I'm sorry, I'm not following my own rules. I'm carried away. But let's follow my own rules a minute. Let's do this properly. So we talked about the sun. Let's go to the moon. Now we have a saying in astrology that when people don't know you, they see you as your ascendant. When they know you better and they know what you do, they see you as your sun. But when they really know you, they see you as your moon. And here the moon is in a very public place in the 10th house of career. First of all, coming from evolutionary astrology, we know that the sign of Capricorn and the 10th house hold karma. So we understand that this person comes with karma in regards to family, mother, the sense of belonging, and an inner sense of emotional peace and tranquility. There is karma there. And that karma could be transferred to the next generation as well. But if we look at other symbologies, having the moon in our 10th house means that we'll feel at home, and the closest people to us would be in our career, which is kind of true for him. That's where he spent most of his time. And it's in the sign of Aquarius. Sign of Aquarius holds within it great instability, but also, a sense of difference, heterogeneity, rebelliousness, and something sometimes that is ahead of its time, innovative, or maybe genius. In this case, this assists Lennon, since it is in the 10th house, in that sense, to bring its innovative ideas and feelings, ideas, Aquarius, feelings, the moon, into existence in his career. It also talks about the family he came from. It talks about the family that he erected. In Israel, we see many times this moon in Aquarius, especially in the 10th or 11th houses, with people that were born in collective circumstances, such as in socialist kibbutzes. Now, some of these children were taken away from their parents at the age of, 2, or maybe a few months. And that's it. They used to sleep in a children's house, and they would see their parents sometime through the day because the parents needed to work and sleep at night. That was the socialist idea. So they grew in alternative modalities, which is also a sign of the moon in Aquarius. Now, why am I saying it about John? Because John, moon in Capricorn, can also say something about adoption, can say about, the intervention of authorities, especially if it's also with Aquarius, can talk about an orphanage or being brought into a family that I have no blood relations with, but an ideological connection with. And that's actually what happened to John. His mother wasn't able to take good care of him, and her older sisters approached the authorities and asked them to take him out of her hands and into their hands. And he came over and lived with her two older sisters and the husband of one of them. And this collective group of, as John said, wise women made him who he was. But this moon is even more troubled, in a sense, if we look at aspects. Opposing this moon, almost exactly, is Pluto in the 4th house. So this is a double signature. Not only do we have moon opposing Pluto, we have Pluto in the 4th house, which belongs to the moon, belongs to Cancer. It's in the sign of Leo already, and it is conjunct the wounded healer Chiron. Not an easy signature to have in itself in the 4th house in Leo. Certainly not when it opposes a moon in Aquarius in Capricorn. It talks about a deep tragedy that occurred through childhood. When we talk about Pluto, we talk about desertion, we talk about the feeling of betrayal, we talk about death, whether it is real death or emotional death. We talk about cruelty, and we talk about psychological transformation that comes through it, a sense, through that sense of loss. And it could talk in extreme situations also about sexuality within the home atmosphere, or some kind of psychological trauma within the home atmosphere. But it also conjuncts Chiron, the wounded healer, and that makes it even stronger in its traumatic essence. It also gives it a very strong therapeutic ability. I mean, when this person overcomes, they're really able to transcend that pain and make it into something creative, put it into its creation, Leo. But in real life, what happened is that Lenin's father was lost at sea. When he was finally found and brought over to the UK, Lenin's mother was already pregnant from another man. Lenin's father offered to take the baby in her tummy and to raise it as if it was its own. But she was in love with another man already, and she didn't agree. And then for a time, John was with the mother and the boyfriend, and the father came over to take him at weekends. And then at the age of 6, he came over, and the mother and her boyfriend suspected that he wants to kidnap him. And they followed the father and John to the docks where they attempted to board a ship for the US. They stopped them at the docks, and John was made to choose if he wants to stay with his mother and her boyfriend in the UK or go with his father to the US. He chose to stay with his father, but as he saw his mother and her boyfriend walking away, he cried and ran to her. That was the last time he saw his father until I think 25 years later, and then he saw him for 10 minutes, and that was the last time he saw him altogether. So from that moment on, that person wasn't there anymore. That was the first death or betrayal he experienced through parental figures in his childhood that affected him. A few years later, he's taken from his mother into the care of the sisters. And the mother is allowed to come and visit him once a week. At the age of 16, she comes and visits him. She usually was the one that introduced him to music and guitar playing and rock and roll. And as she leaves the house after the visit, she is run over by a car and dies in a car accident. So again, this trauma echoes. We can see the square to Mercury in Scorpio as well. This square to Pluto and Mercury is always can talk about also danger on the road. But we see how this echoes through the chart many times. And again, if we think also about the family that John himself raised, his first boy didn't really have him as a father because he was playing all around, drinking and having fun. And his second boy didn't have his father because his father was murdered. So this is a transgenerational trauma in the chart. And it's part of a great cross in the chart between Saturn and Jupiter opposing Mercury and the moon opposing Pluto and Chiron. So I can go on and interpret the chart even more, but I want to go on the ascendant, talk about the ascendant a little more. And then I want you to, because I can go on and on, I want to give you some more pointers and go into transits. The ascendant is of vital importance. You know, in ancient astrology, it was thought that it's 80% of the importance of the chart is on the ascendant. I don't know if I agree with that. I remember one of my teachers, Robert Query of New York, he studied under Zoltan Mason, and he used to say that Zoltan used to sit with his finger on the ascendant of the chart. And when they would ask him why, he said, so I know who I'm talking to. The ascendant is of great influence on our character and what we feel is important and how we react to things and how other people see us when they don't really know us and who we are and how we operate and the themes that we are going to encounter and develop throughout our lifetime. Throughout our lifetime, whether we like it or not, you know. So I'm going to go on from this chart, unless you really want me to stay on it some more, because I want to, let's clear all the drawings and go for this thing. I want to give you some more pointers. So just to understand what we talked about. If I come from an Aries South node, I know an Aryan quality. I know that I can. I know that destiny is in my hands. I know I have the power to change my fate. And it brings in a strong individuality, a strong personality, a passionate, sexual, subjective viewpoint through life. A feeling of necessity, a feeling that I must act, and if I'm not in charge, I'm vulnerable. And these are fighters that are sensitive to injustice. In a way, social fighters, I mean, they don't even have to be real fighters, but many times they fight for what they believe is right. And they have a sense of urgency. And when I come in an Aries South node, I learn to encounter my limits as an individual, to understand what I lack. I encounter communication problems and friction that hold me from completing my goals, that stop me from progressing. And for an Aries, that's terrible. I find out that I cannot do it alone. That the only way I can do it is through cooperation with others and learning through the meeting of others, through the experience of diversity itself, to have a better sense of what's just and right and sensible. I understand that compromise isn't death, like Aries thought. And I'm not giving up my truth, but maybe upgrading it. That self-doubt and hesitation sometimes are a better course of action. Now let's turn this around a minute, okay? If I come from a Libra South Node, what would I know? I would know that Venusian quality. I would know that it's good to communicate and compromise, that I need to see the whole picture. I would have the sense that harmony prevents pain, that peace cultivates prosperity and enables continuity. I would know, I would remember that neutrality is power, that when I decide I can lose something, I would remember that I can learn through others, that I would have a more global understanding, intercultural understanding through others. And I would have this acute sense of lack and imbalance if I'm alone. Exactly the opposite. And what would I learn if I come from a Libra background? I would learn that there is good and bad, that I cannot be objective all the time, that there is light and dark. And that through that separation, through choosing the new is born, it is the mother of invention and father of innovation in that sense. That I must choose sides, that if I won't, I can take part in injustice. That I don't live in paradise, I live on earth. And we live in a continual state of conflict over a lack of resources, the need for power. And if I don't take part, if I don't put in my effort, I lose. That me and mine need me in order to survive, need my action, need my protection, need my effort in order to survive. And that prioritizing is necessary, that I cannot take care of any hungry child. I need to feed my own first. And just to give an example, here we have, a man coming from the Libra South Node, coming from that harmony, and we have Jupiter conjunct the South Node. So a very philosophical or religious kind of learning, but establishing a new religion at the end, with this Aries Sagittarian ninth house placement. Understanding that you cannot reach for peace all the time, but sometimes you must act. I'm not going to interpret his chart right now because I want to go on. Forecasting. So we're going to talk about planetary transits and how to approach them. First, this is the most basic and cardinal way of divination used by astrologers. And it is often overlooked or underestimated because really you could see so much through transits. And when transiting planets, the idea is that when transiting planets aspect planets and points in our personal and natal chart, we are affected. When they create angles and aspects to our chart, we are affected. Some planets move quickly, so they provide us with a mood, a flavor, a theme for a couple of hours, a couple of days, sometimes a week or two. Some move slower, affect us for several weeks, several months, sometimes a year or two. And then there are the faraway planets. We call them the transformational planets. They can mow down a patch in your personal chart for up to 4 years. And when they're done, you're not the same in that area of your life anymore. Usually, a planet would transit a spot in your chart and hit it 3 times or 1 time. Why? Well, 1 time is obvious, it will just, as it goes through the sky, go over your chart point, have a hit, and go past it. Sometimes, after moving away from it and going onwards, it would retrograde back and stitch it another time. And then when the retrograde ends, stitch it the 3rd time. Rarely, it would go into another retrograde that hits that chart point, and you would have a five hits in a transit. And that would be an exceptionally long transit. Transits are felt more in the beginning and the end, but are felt all around, and especially in these peak exact hit points. I'm going to show it to you I'm going to show it to you later. But I have one thing that I want to say that is very important. We must remember as astrologers that people watch every word that comes out of our mouth, you know? Every gaze that we take on their chart, you know, if we make a face, they can deduct from it, you know, that Goddess knows what we're not telling, you know. So we need to be very, very responsible and very, very careful with our words. We need to remember that we cannot see exactly what will take place. We must not force our own interpretation on the person before us or their future. We must remember that a lucky transit, whether a lucky transit is approaching or a challenging one, our job is to prepare the person in front of us to have better tools to go through these situations so they have a positive outcome in their lives. Not develop expectations nor anxieties because of what we tell them. Because every sign, whether it's Jupiter coming in an aspect to a planet in our chart, or Pluto or Saturn, have a full spectrum to that symbol, from very unkind and unpleasant occurrences to occurrences that are wonderful. So let's take Jupiter as an example, you know, the luckiest of planets, the planet of Dharma. So it can definitely, let's say it's coming in and affecting your Venus. So it might enhance your ability to gain material goods or value or money in your life. And that isn't a bad thing. But it can also say that you'll be gaining weight at that time, right? Because Venus talks about eating and drinking and our relationships to the senses and the body, or that we'll be spending a lot, you know? So we need to remember that each symbol has a full spectrum that we can address, and that it is not about creating expectations or anxieties, but actually giving the person better tools to squeeze the most out of this transit, to be better prepared for that transit. Furthermore, we need to understand that many transits, and we're going to see that, occur simultaneously. And they color different parts of our life and give it different atmospheres. So of course, we can say there are easier years and more challenging years or times, but there can definitely be a time, you know, that in several aspects of my life, different things are taking place. I'm having this new wonderful romance, but I don't have a job right now. I'm very frustrated with the relationship I have with my parents, but the relationship I have with my friends is giving me so much more than I ever expected, you know? So different areas of our lives having different experiences at the same time. So let's go. These are my details, just if you wanna, I'm gonna go back to my details later. So you have them, because I wanna go over and sit in front of my eye. So here you have the charts, and I'm using Solar Fire because they have a very nice application here that is called a time map that can really depict what I was trying to state before. So I'm doing transits right now for John Lennon, the deceased, God bless his soul, John Lennon. So I'm actually doing it because he is the cis, because I don't want to do it to a live person to talk about their personal life right now. So as if Lenin was alive. So this is what we call a time map. And here we can see two rows. In this row, every planet has a small t beside it, meaning this is a transiting planet. Here we have the aspect created, and here we have the natal planet. And this is how long it is actually occurring, this 2021, 2022, 2023, and how many hit points this transit actually has. Now, when we'll go over and see like the year of 2022 and 2023, we see that many things are happening to different planets in different houses, coloring this person's life, if they were alive, in different challenges and experiences and occurrences. We cannot talk generally about something. We have to be more particular and exact. And the way we do that is remember that first and foremost, the planet itself holds a natural symbology. Let's say Jupiter sextiles the moon. Okay, beginning May 20, 2022, with 3 exact hits. The next one in October or the end of September 2022, and the last one, the end of January 2023. If this person was alive, we could say, this is a betterment of, your relationship with family, moon, children, moon, maybe your parents' moon. Maybe you could move into a nicer house or make your house more beautiful, and definitely a better feeling of well-being, of emotional well-being and happiness through this time. These are all lunar symbologies, but we need to take into effect the house placement that this moon is sitting in and the house from which Jupiter is sending its sextile. In this case, we have Jupiter in the 12th house sextiling the moon in the 10th. And then we add these symbologies into our interpretation. We can say the 12th house talked about the world, about the universe, about public sphere. And as it sextiles the moon in the 10th house of your career, maybe an expansion of the career is in place. Maybe you'll feel that the public is accepting or loving something you put out in your career. And these are possible explanations. So we add the house placement into the symbology of that planet as well. I hope I'm making myself clear. We can see that if John was alive in May as well, they would have a sun opposing Chiron. I mean, transiting Chiron would be opposing their natal sun. Now, that isn't something very, that makes the sun a lot more sensitive, and that could be detrimental to our health. That could maybe show us our hurt places and our aches and pains, and where we need to actually do a purification and healing process more amply, maybe in the relationship we have with our creativity, with our self-realization, with our children, with love, with our father and mother, and so on and so forth, all sun symbologies. And then again, we take in the house placement. So we can see it's from the 12th house, again, the public, the things beyond our control, the world, and the 6th house of health, the 6th house of work and service. So indeed, we could be more feeble or at least sensitive, and this calls for us to actually not neglect our health, and not exhaust our energies prior to this transit in order to reach it in a better condition than we are right now. and actually have this time provide us with a great healing, which is also a symbology of Chiron. Provide the sun with a great healing, shedding a lot of the hurts and the pains and the dead weight and leaving it behind us. So it could truly shine. So again, we need to remember the full spectrum of that symbology, the good and the bad. I hope I make myself clear. I don't know how much time is elapsed, but I'm willing to answer questions and elaborate on anything you might want me to.
So far, doing so good. And we've got as much time as you have left, but we can wrap up whichever place you're in, but it's going good.
Wonderful, wonderful. So listen, we only touched the tip of the iceberg here, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to give you more through Stormy. And of course, if you have questions, I would answer them and elaborate. But if you do want to contact me for private lessons or online courses or readings, these are the ways you could do that. Fyler Astrology on social media, Evolutionary Astrology Forecast on YouTube. That's where I have a English forecast, weekly forecast that comes out every week for free. Talks about the celestial soup we're all swimming in. And of course, that's my phone. I love people approaching me in WhatsApp. May we all live long and prosper. Amen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for presenting for us today. And we'll have plenty of time, you guys. If you didn't get to jump in and watch live, that's okay. The replay will be here. It will be up in the playlist. So watch and share. And if you have questions, leave them down below. And remember, we come through on Wednesdays and Saturdays and answer any of the questions that you leave. So we'll be looking back to check that out as well. So you're getting a lot of thank yous from the chat as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right, beautiful friends. I will.
And good luck with the rest of everything you're doing and undertaking for all of us in this community. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
I think people are benefiting from what you're doing. So here's to you. And may we all live long and prosper. Amen. I love the Vulcan.
The Vulcan. I can't even do it. I've never really been able to do it. All right, you guys, we love you and we'll see you next time.